Welcome to this special evening of tribute. We thank Hashem for reaching this occasion of completing the entire Seder Moed. לכבוד המטרה המיוחדת שהרב לפין כל כך פועל ומשתדל. אז אני אפתח באיזשהו סיפור קצר. פעם אחת, מספרים שבא לפני רב מנחם מנדל מקוץ, תלמיד חכם שרצה להיות חסיד שלו, אז הוא בא ושאל אותו, רב מנחם מנדל שואל אותו, תגיד לי, מה כבר למדת? הוא אומר לו, מה זה למדתי? את כל הש"ס, כל הבבלי. אז הוא אומר לו, לא הבנת את השאלה שלי, זה אני יודע. אני שואל, מה הש"ס לימד אותך? לא כולם מכירים, חלק כן, חלק לא. הרב לפין, בדרכו המיוחדת, בכישרון בלתי רגיל, יודע לדלות, to reveal, מכל דף גמרא, בין אם זה מסכת ברכות, או הסוגיות של טומאה וטהרה בסוף מסכת חגיגה, למצוא איזשהו אוצר, to find a treasure, בכל דף. והרב לפין לוקח את המסרים האלה לחיים שלנו. אני רוצה לומר לכם שבכל יום, מי שזוכה יודע כל יום בכולל למשך 15 דקות, מקבל איזשהו מטמון שהוא יכול לקחת אותו. והרב לפין שכבר העמיד אלפי תלמידים ברחבי העולם, אם בדרום אפריקה ואם בארצות הברית, היום פה כרב קהילת KBA, או רעננה, מצוין. אז כל יום יש את השיעור המיוחד של הרב לפין, אבל גם יש ובסייט, אבל ישנו אתר מיוחד, יש אפשרות גם להירשם במייל, גם אפשרות בוואטסאפ, לקבל מדי יום את השיעור כתוב, מוקלט, ואפשר לומר, תאמור או כי טוב השם, אם תבקשנה ככסף, וכמטמונים תחפשנה, אז תבין יראת השם. אני מתכבד להזמין את הרב לפין, לגלות לנו איזשהו מטמון, to reveal a treasure for us, from the דף יומי. שרקוי הרב לפין, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rav Nadav, הרב ראשון, ידידי החשוב, הרבי מקליבלנד, האדמו"ר, ידידי הרב הורוביץ, רבנים וצמדי חכמים חשובים, כבוד ראש העיר, יושב ראש המועצה הדתית, מר אריה פרידמן, סגן ראש העיר, חברי שיעור המתמונים וצומחיו, וכל חבריי החשובים. I'll just say a few opening words in עברית, פותחים בכבוד אכסניה וליבי גדוש בהוקרה עמוקה, לא רק לעיריית רעננה ברשות ראש העיר, אבל גם לכל תושבי רעננה, מנהיגיה, רבני העיר וקהילותיהם, ובייחוד לקהילתי, קהילת בני אהרון, ולכל תלמידיי, על שקיבלתם אותי ואת משפחתי לתוככם בכבוד ואהבה גדולה, בעלותנו ארצה לפני כשנתיים. ואפשרתם לנו להקים את ביתנו פה בעיר היפה והחשובה הזאת, ובזה עזרתכם להרביץ פה תורה לרבים. וכן מודה אני לאשתי שתחיה מאפשרת את פעולותיי למען הכלל. Since the last Siyum of Seder, when so many people joined the Daf HaYomi, I've been moved by opposite feelings, feelings of excitement and also feelings of sadness. Excitement that so many people are learning, and sadness that so many think that a superficial understanding is what Gemara really is. Sadness that is not really transformational for them. There isn't time in going through a day, an hour or so. That can't really change who one is. Often not even relevant to their lives. And yet they're short of more time to learn. That's the reason for which I started the Matmonim program as an adjunct to Daf Yomi, for those who learn it. And also as a self-standing limud for those who don't. You see, somebody can fly from New York to Los Angeles and say, I've seen America. And they're right. They've seen America. They've got an idea of the landscape, they've got an idea of the different layouts and geographies and weathers and towns and cities. They've seen America. But have they really seen America? And so one can go through Shas and one has seen Shas. But has one really? And so the Matmonim parachutes down into the villages and into the towns and takes a look at what's really happening on the ground. So that as one goes through the Shas, one gets some kind of a feeling of what the real issues are that are being discussed and how they affect me and my life. That's what we do in the Matmonim. And I invite you to join us live every morning at the community kollel in Achuza, or to access the Shiurim at matmonim.org. Seder Moed deals with boundaries of time. When Shabbat starts, when it ends, Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed, Yom Kippur, we deal with time. But Moed also means a meeting point, and to synchronize our meetings, we need coordinates of time and we also need coordinates of space. Where will we meet and when will we meet? If we don't have those coordinates, we can't synchronize. Seder Moed starts with the intersection of time and space, referring to the Reshuyot of Shabbat, the different domains of Shabbat, a Reshut HaYachid and a Reshut HaRabim, public domain and private domain. It talks about that interface, that boundary line between Reshut HaYachid and Reshut HaRabim. That's what the opening Mishnah of Seder Moed deals with. The boundary to which a poor person comes to collect tzedakah, puts his hand out across the fence, and the Balabayit, the owner of the property, goes to the boundary, extends his hand, and helps the poor person, but doesn't bring him into his house. That's not what the first Mishnah deals with. Ha'ani omed bachutz. The ani stands outside, the poor person stands out, and the Balabayit is inside his home. And we end Seder Moed according to the Seder of the Daf Yomi, which is not everybody's Seder. The Seder of Rabbi Yaakov Me'olayin's in Tosfos in Moed Katan, Daf Kaches Amud Beis, says that Moed Katan is the last Masechta of Moed. But the way we learn it, Chagiga is the last Masechta of Moed. And it deals with visitors we do invite inside. Not like the Ani Omed Bachutz V'Alabayit Bifnim, but on the last page of Chagiga we're dealing with guests we do invite inside. Did you notice that was the topic of the last Omid of Chagiga? They sit at our tables, not at the fence of our properties. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, Damri Tzarbayu, both Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish say, Bizman shebeit HaMikdash kayam mizbeach mechaper al adam. While the Beis HaMikdash was around, the Mizbeach, the altar, atoned for people. Achshav, now, where's our kapara? Shulchano shel adam mechaper alav. It's the table on which you eat your meals. That does the kapara. And explains Rashi, b'hachnasat orchim. The way your table is mechaper is through the guests that you bring into your table. Because by converting an eating experience into a social experience, by converting food into conversation, we elevate the meal. We uplift it. We give it meaning. And we infuse it with Kedusha. Is that not what we do on the Mizbeach? To take food and elevate it and give it Kedusha and make it something higher? And that's what we do when we have Orchim at our table. And we talk with them, and we comfort them, and we inspire them. The whole table now becomes an upliftment of food. Instead of eating like an animal, we're conversing, we're having conversation, which only human beings can do. But what if you don't have guests? What if you're eating alone? You'll remember the famous Medrash in Parashat Bahar, Gomel nafsho ish chesed zeh Hillel hazaken. Hillel hazaken used to finish after giving his shiur. He would go home and his Talmidim would say to him, where are you going? Why are you in such a hurry? Omar Lahem, he would say, I need to go home, I've got a guest, I've got to do chesed with my guest, I've got to take care of my guest at home. Amrullah, they said to him, Kol yom idlach achsanya, every day we ask you the question, and every day you say you're going home to take care of your guest. Do you have a guest every day? Is my soul not a guest in my body? When I take care of my life, when I eat at home, I'm taking care of my neshama as well. I'm taking care of the guest in my body. And so with Hillel's approach, every meal is an act of chesed. Even if I don't have guests, I do have a guest. Even if I don't have guests, I'm uplifting the meaning of eating from one of survival to one of taking care of a life that is dedicated to Torah v'avodah. The shulchan, a table, lifts food up to a person, unlike an animal who lowers himself to the food and eats off the ground. That's what a shulchan is. It changes the whole concept of food and the way we nourish ourselves. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch Paskins in Kuf Samech Zayin, the Ramor says, based on the Shibbolei HaLeket, mitzvah lahaniach al kol shulchan melech kodem sheyivtzu. As we discussed in the Matmonim shiur, the important part is to have salt on the table. Dipping it is another thing. The important thing is to have salt on the table. Ki hashulchan domeh lemizbeach va'achila kekorban. because the table is like a mizbeach and the food is like a korban. That's what's important to know and to appreciate. And therefore we have to come to our meals as we would come to an avodat Beit HaMikdash. We've got to come to it with the koved rosh, with the seriousness of intent, with the sense of exhilaration and upliftment and inspiration. That's what a meal is. That's how we sit at the table. And the table should be clean and beautiful. And the conversation should be uplifting conversation. That's what this is really about. Not to get stuck in the ritual of salt. Where's the salt? Dip the salt. But in the meaning of what a shulchan is and how we're meant to eat. I've been privileged to have eaten so many times at the tables of Gateshead Israel, of the great minds and souls of Israel, and I've seen it in real life, over and over and over again, even when no one else is there. So now we move into a new Masechta, a new Seder, which is not about boundaries and relationships of time and place, but of individuals and family. Masechet Yevamot starts close into the individual and moves outwards. Tana kurvi kurvi nakat. If you look at the order of the Mishnah, the Gemara is very fascinated by the order of the different relationships in the first Mishnah, and says it starts with those relationships closest to us. Tana bito, vat beno, de kroive atzmo. It starts with those relationships that are one's own blood relationships, a daughter, and then it moves on to relationships by marriage. Always start with the Reshut HaYachid. Always see that the Reshut HaYachid is in order, that one's own inner place, one's self-identity, one's Haden Nafsha Bego Gufa, that soul inside our body, always make sure that Le'olam Yehei Adam Yerei Shamayim B'Seter, that in the secret recesses of our hearts, there is Yirat Shamayim, there is God-fearing. Always make sure that that's in place first. Then engage with the public from the safety of your Reshut HaYachid. Then little by little, you extend your hand outwards to other people. But the inner part still stays pure. Then you can invite them with Aknasat Orchim. Then you can bring them into your house so that Shulchano Mechaper Alav. And so it is with Torah. Kiruv is important. Bringing people close to Torah is important. The Reshut of Harabim of Raanana is important. And we depend on wonderful people like our Rav Peretz, who was here, Rav Ishon, who's with us, the Mayor, Chaim Goldman. These are the people who are fighting to make sure that the Reshut Harabim is a place that is as far as possibly can be Al Pi Torah V'Halakha. Aryeh Friedman from the Moatzah, these are people who are Moised Nefesh to make sure that things are as they need to be. But as Mechanchim and Rabbonim and Lomdim, as rabbis, teachers and learners of Torah, let's always be sure that our Reshut HaYachid, our Batei Knesset, our shuls, our homes, our Batei Midrash, are places of pure Limud Torah, Avodat Hashem, and Yirat Shamayim. Don't compromise the inside to satisfy the outside. Don't compromise the Balabayit to satisfy the Ani. The Balabayit stays inside and stretches his hand outside. The Orchim come inside into our environment, but we don't compromise our environment. The Shulchan remains a Mizbeach. We don't turn the Shulchan into a party buffet. The Shulchan remains a Mizbeach. If an orach, if a guest wants to come into our shulchan, let him come and join the shulchan. We won't bring the shulchan down to him, we'll uplift him to the shulchan. And that's what we need to be doing in our shuls and our batei medrash. Uplifting people, inspiring people to the Torah. Not chas v'shalom, bringing the Torah down to their level, to make it palatable for them. But to bring them up to the levels of the Torah and inspire them with what the Torah really is. So that in our spaces we can grow and develop. Until with the Binyan Beit HaMikdash, the Mizbeach will again be Mechaper Alav Avotenu. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you for your participation. Thanks to the Talmudim of Matmonim. Thank you for your support and for your encouragement.
תודה רבה. כולנו ממש גילינו במילים הקצרות הללו יהלומים ומטמונים. בעזרת השם שנזכה לקחת מהם, וכל יום ויום אפשר לשמוע וללמוד.